Thank you very much, Kjartan, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Yeah. You told me something just off the camera, what your name means.
Yeah, it's sea warrior in Icelandic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sea warrior. And Slætti, what does that mean?
It means what it means. It's straightforward.
Yeah.
I don't know the context or
Yeah,
history.
it's often from areas in Norway.
Yeah, but I don't know where.
Yeah.
So my name, Sea, I used to introduce myself as Kjartan and Sea Warrior
Sea warrior.
in New York, and
Yeah.
that was fun.
Yeah.
But I saw often during the course of an evening the name would evolve.
Yeah.
So it started as Sea Warrior, cool, and then it would often transcend into Sea Bass, and one time it ended up as Sea Lion.
Sea lion. Okay.
And then I stopped talking about it, and I now go by KJ, which is easier.
Okay. So
Much easier.
it's often difficult with these Nordic names. How do you use them internationally? So
Exactly.
KJ,
So I was just told by my co-founder Thomas, who lives in New York, just stop trying. Get yourself a college frat name, like KJ,
KJ. Exactly.
and you're good.
Great.
Yeah.
So many people here know you, Kjartan Slætti, in Unicast. For people who don't know Unicast, you want to tell a little bit about what you do today and what Unicast does?
Yeah, my story started with being part of the founding team of a company called Tidal. It was a music streaming company. It was acquired by JC and now latest by Jack Dorsey of Twitter and Square. And then as that was acquired, Thomas and I started Unicast, Freudian slip. And we're basically trying to understand the whole world, how it fits together movement-wise, so that we can understand retail, pandemics like COVID-19, social distancing, real estate, city development, transportation. So it's a huge task. But
and how do you do that? Like you have a large vision, understand the whole world, and I assume with data.
With data, yes.
Yeah. So can you explain it also in layman's terms?
Yeah. So we're trying to use different signals from telecom, from Wi-Fi, from GPS, from NFC, and any signal that says something about the physical world, and then we aggregate that up to try to create movement patterns.
I see.
That's the short of it. Yeah.
So you went from one company to another, and with the same person, Thomas, or did he?
Yeah, I studied with him in Copenhagen. And we worked together in Tidal. And when that was acquired, we wanted to try to rectify some of the errors made in Tidal, and also to build upon our relationship. So that's when we decided we need to do this again.
Yeah, wow, great. So you didn't want to retire, but you want to keep.
No. I don't think retirement seems to me like in kind of a dying concept. I think it will be different for our generation and beyond retirement. So I hope not, never.
So you don't want to spend your time playing golf in Florida?
Never,
no.
Especially not in Florida with the political climate in the US right now.
I see. So, but have you always been fascinating in ideas and entrepreneurship and never? No,
I was kind of destined to go the academic route. That was my path.
What did you study?
I started on law and psychology, but totally unmotivated. And it was very...
Both in law and psychology?
Both. And I started with law straight after high school because that was my path in life, I believed, and my surroundings believed. But I could not motivate myself. No. So I thought, okay, it's law that is the problem. Let's find another route, because it's still the academic route. So I thought, let's find something that is applicable to more paths. And psychology is something that you can build on in many different routes, right? But the same happened. Could not motivate myself or get into it.
You tried everything. Listen to music or coffee or talking to colleagues. And
I just realized halfway into that first year of psychology that it was it was not the education that was a problem with me.
Yeah.
I was not ready. I didn't want this myself.
Mm-hmm.
So while I was studying, I've been working part-time in a record store, and I said, instead of wasting time and money trying to find something that I'm clearly not motivated to right now, at least, let's just make a clean break and just work. So instead, I dove into the music industry and became a store manager, and then later the head buyer. And some years later, that's when I got the urge. Okay, now I'm ready. And then I moved to Copenhagen and started business school there. That's when I met Thomas. But then studying for me wasn't following some kind of path I believed to be the correct one. It was more about adding competences to what I've already experienced and wanted to experience more of.
So with these years in the record store and being a store manager, being in industry and business, you realized, okay, this is my path.
No. I realized that now is the time to backfill with kind of more theoretical frameworks to business. And then by accident, which I think life is largely about accidents, and then you choose like you have choices in front of you, but they are random. But then you take certain choices over others, and then when you look in the back mirror, rearview mirror, it seems like it was all planned out. Of course, it isn't. So by accident, the music industry was the first industry hit by digital, right? A simple fact: it's the file size are small enough to allow for easy distribution over internet. So that was the industry that was attacked by what we then call pirates, Napster, etc. And that forced, after a couple of years, that industry and then myself to rethink how to sell music. And that led to MP3s, and that further down the road led to streaming, which is the, of course, dominant music consumption form today. So, and if you want to go further back, I started in the record store because my dad collected vinyl.
Wow.
So I grew up looking at these fantastic vinyl covers and just mesmerized by the creativity. And he talked about Beatles and Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd, and he was the one that introduced me to my music favorites, Beck, Portishead, like in the early 2000s. So it was my dad. And isn't that, you know this, isn't everything your parents? Everything?
Could be for some, I see.
So random events, but I'm proud that I took the opportunities in front of me.
So, and then you meet Thomas. You talk you talk kindly about him.
Yeah, I met him in Copenhagen.
And
he was a bit younger, since he had gone the direct from high school route, and he has a very clear career path. In his head, and I was a bit older, but we were in a foreign country, so it was natural that two Norwegians hit up a conversation. So
the Danish people, they're often to Icelanders and Norwegians.
At least it took some time to just make them understand what we were about. So the very first day at school, even before we started classes, we met at like this intro gathering, and we said hi. We were night and day. I came from the music industry, had long hair, and had some years of experience. He was this preppy boy from the west of Oslo with no experience. But due to the randomness of us being in that country at that time, led us to meet. And then we worked together for 3 years at CBS, at the school.
And after the education, how did you decide to go into starting a company or concept? How did that develop?
Yeah, I came from the music industry, and this was just at the moment where the music industry was bleeding because of the piracy. So we decided to use most of our time at CBS, trying to understand from a theoretical viewpoint why this happened. So we kind of dissected the music industry or digital industries to understand why they were reacting with threats of lawsuits instead of trying to see this as is a better service. Like Napster was a better product than the music industry's distribution through CDs.
Yeah.
So we used those 3 years to really dive into some of those background processes and built-in guardrails that the industry had that prohibited them from seeing what was happening.
I see.
And they were basically locked into their own kind of universe of understanding. We used a lot of Bourdieu to understand how they were using their capital of like economy and also the legal perspective to keep their users to them. But in that they failed to see that the users had moved on. So as we came to the end of that journey, I was hired or asked to come join a company in Norway that were just starting to experiment with MP3 stores, etc. That was, of course, very compelling. A, it was music, which I came from. B, it was trying to address some of those theoretical challenges that we have been focusing on in Copenhagen. And that, over the course of the next years, merged into streaming and Tidal. And voila, I was in the tech industry.
Yeah, I see.
So I completely backed into it by luck.
So one thing led to another.
Randomness, but again, I decided to move to Copenhagen to study. That was a bit of a bold move with no support network. I decided to move to Norway 6 months before my studies were done to take this job. So I went back every weekend to write my assignments, but I lived in Norway for half a year while studying in Copenhagen. So there's these choices I've made, which I'm proud of, but the opportunity itself, random.
I see. Yeah, some people describe often that in their career they take one choice and it's like after that choices almost take them themselves, that things just start to develop automatically. Did you feel that you were just starting a journey and then one path followed another automatically?
Yeah, not automatically, but it was a kind of a growth thing. So one thing was the opportunities that we talked about, but my personal journey was, because if you go back to my kind of perceived academic destiny, also signaled that I perhaps didn't believe that I were in total control of my life. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that journey over those years also signaled kind of a liberation or independence, where I gradually learned or challenged myself to take bigger risk and try uncertain things. So if that didn't happen in parallel, I think I would have said no to a lot of the opportunities in front of me. So
was that challenging to have it hanging over you? Sometimes the community and society and parents and family send signals that this would be ideal to do, and then a person does something else. You can feel that the signals. Was that challenging?
Yeah, of course. But with all things, each time you do it, becomes a bit easier. So first time horrible, and I think that's why I actually kept the academic route for 2 years. It's a lot of time, right? Before I woke up and said this, even if it's embarrassing, because it's kind of embarrassing, that's the route you take in Norway. So when you kind of stop studying for a while, you kind of also send a signal to your surroundings that you have failed, right? You do. So that, I would say, that was the big choice that demanded a lot from me. But then consequently it gets easier, right?
And did you think your self-confidence and believe in yourself grew, or was it always high?
No, it was always low. So this is pure training, and I'm still very uncertain at core. But I've learned to see that as a strength, not as a weakness, because I've experienced that it's not dangerous to try to do stuff, and then I rather see my insecurities as something that levels me, that helps me prepare, and not be complacent. So, and I think a lot of life is about becoming like friends with your monster, not trying to necessarily change it because that's super hard. But try to accept it, and this is who I am, and how can I use this to create value instead of destruction.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting, especially for psychologists.
Free tip.
Okay. So, but can you walk us through that a little bit? Like you embrace the insecurity that
gradually.
Yeah. So how do you see that as a strength today? Like because you probably changed your attitude towards the insecurity, and like, can you walk us through what happened to you?
Yeah. So the ultimate, that's not where I am, but I think the ultimate destination is to realize that all of this is a construction, right? Nothing is real, so to say. Nothing really matters. We are a random distribution and evolvement of cells and genes on a cold, lonely planet in an endless universe. Everything, us, this meeting, totally meaningless.
Really? You think?
Totally meaningless in like the larger scale. And for me, that is liberating because that means if there's no meaning, you have to create it yourself. Right? You have to build meaning into your life. And that for me is much more giving than trying to seek meaning outside myself through work or relationships or career or wealth or anything. But that's the destination, and I think it's an ideal. You never really get there if you're not like a Zen Buddhist monk or something that is totally disconnected. But that's my ideal, to strive and
create meaning for yourself.
Remind myself that everything is meaningless. Therefore, I have to create meaning. So I would say I'm like midway on that. I'm still kind of.
And what is the insecurity which you mentioned? Is that how is that connected to you? Like, were you does that mean that you were insecure about yourself or about your ability to
I was
an
introvert as a kid. So I spent most of my time with like my own thoughts. That's probably why I was also pretty good at school because I used a lot of time on it. So. It's only kind of the latter part of my life where I've moved from being an introvert to, I wouldn't say extrovert, but more of an ambivert, like needing both the solitude and the social energy. But I've often thought about why and what was the trigger point. If I were to the change, I mean, if I were to be my own psychologist, which I think you should be from time to time. I think it was when I got to the stage where you're kind of going to your first parties, started drinking, like 17 for me, pretty late. But then I got into this new group of friends, and they listened to different music, they wore different clothes. So I kind of got and they were super nice in addition, right? So and they're still my friends. So that was kind of the first kind of sign or peak into a different life, that there are different ways of living. And then as a consequence, I believe I dared to take that part-time position in a record store, which is a very, like working in a store, especially with music, is a very extrovert position because you are meeting, well, all youths at your age as they come in and buy music, and you have to be very outgoing to succeed. So I think that was the active choice that enforced kind of this initial thought. But then the trigger point, I think, was when I came home and said, hey, I got this job in a record store, and my family, we ate dinner together every evening. Very good, tight family and childhood, but they couldn't believe it, and they reacted, I would say logically, but they reacted surprised.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Did they say?
Yes. And I remember thinking that no one decides what I can do or not. Like I can change faster than your impression of me. So I think that's what I decided, that I'm going to be focusing on this.
So okay, interesting. So some of this insecurity you talk about manifests itself around other people, but you're more secure when you're alone in the solitude. Is that how things were?
I don't know if you can be that black and white. I think I have an insecure core. But I've learned to master it and then listen to it when needed and ignore it when needed. And I said 90% of the time, it's wise to ignore it. Because as humans, we overestimate how much other people think about you.
That is true.
Most people think about themselves. And they don't care about your errors or mistakes or embarrassing moments. So it's training.
I see. Okay, and interesting that you stayed in such a tough industry for many years.
Because what I brought with me from the initial introvert days was this. I had this. I knew that working hard worked. I knew that if you work hard on a subject over time, you would be smarter and learn new stuff. So I took that with me, or that's kind of built in. So when I do something, even if it's super scary, if I've just crossed the threshold, I'm like an animal. I'm gonna claw to it until
that's a signal to you that this is exciting.
Until the prey is dead.
I see. So some people talk about that. They actively, whether it's a conscious choice, but they actively seek discomfort, or they might thrive in it.
And that's what I've learned again through doing this a couple of times, that I'm most happy in discomfort. And I had this discussion with a PhD that works here, who has a PhD, and he has been thinking a lot about what happiness is. So we had this super interesting discussion about happiness in his interview. And we discussed if happiness is being content every second, minute, hour of your life. So that could be through food or entertainment or some kind of vice, but you're making sure that you're always entertained and happy. Or is happiness delaying happiness by working really hard and actually being quite unhappy at times because you are striving for something more or better? And we didn't kind of conclude, but we decided that, at least for us, happiness was looking back at the end of your life, at your life, and being proud, instead of having each moment being filled with happiness, or perhaps looking back and being, I really spent too much time on that sofa stuffing food into my face.
I see.
I'd rather be happy on my deathbed or in every moment of my life, if that makes sense. It sounds kind of fatalistic, but...
No, I see, I see, So what is often interesting, I think, is that together with Thomas, you're the founder of Unicast, and now you have a growing company. And I can sense it's my first time in your office. There is a philosophy on how to treat people.
Yes.
Whether it's the right philosophy, I don't know.
It's ours.
But it's yours, and there is a philosophy. So, and it's often connected to philosophy of the founders.
It should be.
Yeah.
I think it's very easily detectable if it's not.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about that off camera. When you sense something is real or not. So that's why it's important that often the culture is connected to how the founders think as well.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about how you think about employees and how you think about treating them, and what is a little bit the philosophy?
First, to your question or your intro, I think you're right that initial culture is very connected to the founding team, at least. of course, you can't really control culture. It's its own thing. So
changes when new people come.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and we used to talk about when we were interviewing, talk about cultural fit, but it very soon dawned upon us that that's the wrong way of looking at it, because we don't want to have someone fit into a pre-created box. We want someone to grow our culture and who we are. So now we talk about culture contribution, which is a much more open philosophy about who people can be and will grow into. But yeah, we have a people first philosophy.
But they are not allowed to be happy.
At the end of your life.
That's what they say in the interview.
Everyone,
we don't want you to be happy just in the end of your life.
Are you smiling?
Exactly.
No, everyone has to choose their happiness route.
Yeah.
But yeah, we try to, and I think this is synonymous for most modern companies, hopefully, that we try to build a company around the people instead of building a company and then trying to fit people into that company. So that means that it's like an organism, and that further means that the teams and how we structure ourselves, it's changing. It's not like a mold that we have to at all times fit into. So in the start, that was pretty easy. We had some false starts. When we started to define our culture, we did what most companies do. We decided on 5 things, and then we emailed it out and said, "This is our values. These are our values." Okay, people accepted it, but they were not used.
No.
And no wonder, because they were just created, right? And I think
they sounded or looked good.
Like be brave and go forward and all the bullshit. And I think you can see those in many companies. You often paint. If my theory is that if a company has values painted on the wall, nobody believes them. Because if you have to go to the step and paint them on the wall, it's not your real values.
I think it's a good indication as well. If you're in a company, it's a sign: wash your cups after using. Then you know the kitchen is dirty.
That's a good example, like a micro example. So so we just had to half a year later that process, and we restarted it. I've written a blog post about this too. Where we more had a conversation as a company, and the question was more, who are we and who do we aspire to be, instead of what's something cool to tell the world that we are. And that led to a much more healthy process. And those values, which were 5 at the time, have been condensed to 4 and to the 3 today, and they're on their way to be 1 without words, just a symbol. And I think that's for me that's a sign of success, when you can condense what you're about into less and less like external objects. And we, instead of painting on the walls, we have made sure that we can use it in our daily conversations. So we made them into icons. We use them as emojis in Slack. So we're trying to build a language where this is a natural part, instead of, what was our values again? I have to look it up in a handbook. It was be brave.
Exactly.
So that was the initial kind of aha moment, that values have to come from within, and not from some kind of design process. And then build everything around that. But then, of course, you have to evolve as you grow and become more people. You learn new stuff. For instance, we're in the US and Norway. There's slight cultural differences, not slight, even big. So Norway, you have like the social democracy as the foundation of how we live and work. While in the US, you have the American dream, which is the foundation, and that's much more individualistic, right? So that means that there's small differences, or actually big, that also reveals itself at the workplace. So we have to gradually make some adjustments to be applicable across the Atlantic. We have evolved with having explicit code of conducts, so that we ahead of a potential event have defined what is appropriate behavior, for instance. And I've found that many companies struggle with kind of dealing with events, negative events at the company when they are doing it retroactively. Because then the people involved can say, yeah, but I didn't know, this is a gray area, or you can argue, yeah, but this is such a valuable person for us, so we're going to look to other. There's so many outs, but if you have defined your code of conduct very, very explicitly, you don't have any outs. This is what we believe in.
Working on it proactively,
Much easier, much more, much safer. And I think if I were to sum it up, it's about creating a safe environment, because that's where people have fun and do great things.
Psychological safety, as we
and we talked about it when you came in. One thing, and the most important thing, is psychological safety, but also how we design our offices. Right? It's darker, browner tones, lots of cushions and sofas and small rooms and nooks and crannies to hide, be alone if you want to, but also open areas if you want that. So having an environment that enables you to also feel safety.
I see. So and it must be then a core idea behind this is that, now I'm thinking out loud here, is that people who feel better and thrive better, they perform better.
No. It might be, but that's not philosophy.
No. That's not something you believe, that by this, if people are happier, if they thrive better, that they might.
I do believe it, but I can't prove it.
No,
and I'm very skeptical of research papers that point to such conclusions, because you can find 20 others that point to the opposite. So you have to, some things you just have to believe. And for me, it's not about increased performance necessarily, but like we have, what do we have, like 80, 90 years on this meaningless planet. I think it's worthwhile to make that as pleasant and as safe as possible. And that could be a goal in itself, instead of thinking about
what it leads to.
What it leads to, yeah.
Exactly. And as we were talking about, some things you can guarantee, and if you can guarantee that you have it very nice, then that's good for the group and the team. Yeah,
I'm deadly scared of being again old, and not old in itself, but at a retirement home, and then being dissatisfied with my choices, and cutting corners, or being unfriendly, or not taking the chances in front of me. All of those things.
I see.
So that's why the title journey was so frustrating, even though it was a kind of cool exit, etc. But we really did not maximize opportunity. Okay? We were at the right time with the right product, and look at Spotify today, humongous, and Tidal is tiny. And the only reason is poor execution. And that's also one of the reasons that Thomas and I decided to start a new company, because I don't want to sit at that retirement home and really replay in my head.
No.
You have this fantastic global opportunity, and due to lack of understanding, lack of experience, lack of boldness, you didn't take it as far as you could. So I need to rectify that with Unicast. So it's like a personal fire.
I see. So in the retirement home, if you play bingo, you want to do it with a happy face. You don't want to think about the past too much.
Yeah, but exactly. But I'm also conscious that at the retirement home playing bingo, I might be super competitive on bingo.
You might think like, why didn't I study bingo before? Why don't I?
I don't want to die. I don't want to die losing in bingo. so perhaps this is like an eternal. What do you call it in Norwegian? Livsløgn, life lie. That you're always trying to go to it's like when you are on a hike
Yeah.
and you think that the next hill is the top,
Yeah.
but it's never, right?
No,
When
no,
you get
it's
to that
always,
one.
always the next one. Yeah.
But
see.
again, that's what makes me happy.
Yeah. That's good. That you're seeking those challenges. Yeah.
Being on a hike
Yeah.
makes me happy.
And you as a founder and as an entrepreneur, we both know it's up and down, and it can be stressful, and there are many things, many stakeholders. There are people, there are product, there are investors. It is stressful.
It's painful at times.
Yeah. So how have you dealt with that?
The same way as we talked about earlier.
Use the same strategies as...
recognizing that it's part of this. It's not something that you can choose to not have.
No.
I think if you don't have it, you're not really building a company that is ambitious enough. So like with my insecurities, it's about accepting that these valleys, emotional valleys, are part of building a company. And you can even argue that you can't have highs without the lows. That's what gives you contrast. So becoming friendly with the monster. Yeah.
So a lot of I hear that you worked a lot with your beliefs and thoughts about how things are. Did you actively seek books or advice from others in getting feedback on that, or was that all by yourself?
No, I've been to a psychologist once just to test it, and she said, "Never come back. You don't have any issues."
Okay.
you don't need me.
Okay.
No, I'm not read. When I read primarily fiction, and I find that also has a lot of because it more than giving you the answer or giving you the recipe for someone else's solution, it gives you kind of ideas and inputs to your own chain of thought, more so than like a how-to book or
how to tackle stress in a startup.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's too explicit.
That's too explicit because typically it wouldn't really apply to me. It would be so different.
And the guy who wrote that book probably never did a startup.
Exactly. So my favorite book in understanding myself is a book by Paul Auster called The Illusionist, which is about this guy that rediscovers some old footage of a forgotten star from the silence film days. And I don't want to go into details, but it's about what it means to be human. It's about that magic does really exist, but it is real. Like it's in the interconnection between people, and that you can create fantastic stuff in the realm of reality. So I rather listen to those kind of books and read about society, meaning being up to date on what is happening around us. I think that's very, very, very important. So I'm currently reading a book that is comparing the state of today's USA with the latter part of the fall of Rome. And there's many similarities in kind of the deconstruction of democracy, which we're now seeing the early signs of in the US. And I think those are things that we can't get from just sitting with a cup of tea and thinking about life. Those are things that you really need to understand.
Knowledge and analysis. And
what is happening in society today.
But interesting. So from your perspective, like you seek a little sometimes advice or feedback in the fiction that becomes a little bit your self-help, so to speak.
Yes, I'm a little bit wary of getting too much advice from books and others, because I often find that it can put you on the wrong path. And as human beings, we're also perhaps too welcoming of external input, because you often devalue your own opinions and you increase the value of others' opinions. I'm a little bit afraid of being put on the wrong path by being too open. I recognize that sounds horrible, but for me it works to rather try to find truths within instead of outside. It's what we discussed earlier, right? There is no meaning. We are random mutations. So
I never said I agreed. But
no, that's my thinking. And if that is true, then also meaning is within me.
I see. But that is, maybe you're surprised to hear it, but that's actually how psychologists work.
It is?
Yeah. So giving direct advice to people, then you take something away from them.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
take the thinking processes.
So you're more a mirror.
The more mirror, self-reflection, helping people to evaluate options.
Yeah.
Finding their own path.
Exactly.
And people, they have some different paths. So it is music to a psychologist's ears to listen to.
Because if you read a how-to book, it's like 10 steps to become more effective, or 10 steps to become happy.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
It doesn't apply. It doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, for you, the author.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then people may become disappointed. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it is a symptom of our time and age, where, at least in the Western world, where we're coming to this level of comfort, where we're not struggling as much as we used to as a species in the day-to-day to survive, and we're looking for meaning, but often then outside ourselves, and I think that's the wrong place to look.
Yeah. Very interesting. And your private life, are you a family man?
Depends if you mean a traditional family or families in having love of close ones.
Yeah.
If the latter, yes. But I don't live in a traditional family.
No.
I have a daughter. She's 10 and she's with me every other week. And I have siblings, sister, brother. They have their families with various...
Sounds like a family man to me.
Constructions. My parents aren't together anymore, but... we spend time together, so it's like I think it's a pretty symptomatic modern family composition where there's looser and stronger connections and people coming in and out. But in that context, very much a family man, and I think actually it, at least my daughter was the anchor that kept me somewhat. Attached to reality when all of this, it can be a bit of a carousel, positive carousel, when you are in this whirlwind of exposure and you raise a lot of money and you launch in the US. There's a lot of distractions. And without my daughter, I would probably live in New York now, where we have our HQ. I don't. And I'm super glad for that. And that's just one of the many examples of how she, just by being my daughter, but also through the person she is, has balanced me out. So that's very important for me. And I think it's also made me a better, at least a more nuanced business owner.
That's very, very interesting to hear. So your daughter plays a big part then in your life and the decisions you made also for yourself and the company.
Like hugely, like where I live, how I work, how often I work. She's
Are the weeks very different when you have her or when you don't? How do you put them up?
Yeah, so in the start when she was younger, they were night and day, and I almost had this. It's the wrong word, but I'm going to use it anyways. Jekyll and Hyde life, but don't take the comparison too directly. But I had two very different lives. So I had one. When she was in kindergarten, I had 1 week where I made the food for the kindergarten. I followed her. Then I went to work, and then I went back to pick her up. Got her home, played, made dinner, got her to bed, and then I worked some hours in the afternoon, evening, and that was the week. Like her schedule was driving my schedule, and the other week I was in New York.
Totally different.
Just being called sea bass at parties.
Katie now
and meeting investors and working 24/7, being in Manhattan. out eating, meeting people,
Yeah.
and then flying back in the weekend, and then
Picking up and kindergarten on Monday.
making food and
Yeah.
singing songs to
Yeah.
make her fall asleep again.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty good, for me at least, mix in those early days, because I could both dive into what is needed when you start a company, because that is a huge demand on yourself. But I could also make sure to structure all my important meetings, all my important travels to that week. Then I could be super dad the other week.
Yeah.
Now that she's older, those lines are more blurred. So now I can be both a professional and a dad at the same time, much more than when she was little. And of course we had COVID, which changed everything again. And I don't believe, at least at Unicast, we will ever come back to the office 100%. So our initial decision is to work Mondays and Fridays, no, Mondays and Tuesdays, sorry, and then Wednesday to Friday at home. And so perhaps this binary thing I had to make in the early days of her life isn't necessary in the next couple of years due to her age, but also due to me being more at home. Perhaps if I were a young dad today in COVID, it would have been more flexible than it was for me, perhaps.
So the COVID situation also made you change a little bit the company policy in regards to office and...
In conversation with our people, And it's horrible to say this, COVID-19 is a pandemic, millions are dead, millions more are going to die. Africa isn't even beginning to get vaccinated. This is going to mutate, and it's a pandemic of immense proportions. But for me personally, it's been the happiest time of my life.
Oh, so? How?
Just gave me the ability to really embrace a different way of life. First of all, less travel. Never going back to traveling every other week.
You're never going back to the New York every other week scheme.
Thinking back at it now, I think it was almost killing me. Like, I never had appetite. I slept poorly. I was always in this mood, flat. So I'm never going to go back to that kind of... I will travel, but it's going to be more on my terms instead of the company's terms. And I think we also overestimated from a company level and from personal level how needed it was to physically be present so often. So
that's assumptions guiding us. I have to be there. I have to show up. But people realize, oh no, not necessarily.
And like I don't think it's a. The difference is that the whole world realized this, not only me. So it kind of changed the whole landscape of how you can design work in private life. So for me, that's really brought a new kind of calm into my life. You can kind of jog in the middle of the day. I'm there when my daughter comes back from school. Instead of 3 hours later, I can just have a small chat, have a light meal, and then I go back to work. So that was the final puzzle in my puzzle piece in my happiness puzzle. Then it all came together.
Helped you prioritize differently again.
I think I was pretty good at prioritizing before, but it involved more stress. I was kind of, in order to make room for her and work, I was often running between places, physically and mentally. But now I have more time to breathe and be more calm when I transition from those two modes.
Some research points to, and also some people say, I don't know myself what I exactly believe in that, but people say that founders and managers who have children, they become a little bit different managers and then managers who don't have children, and sometimes they change in the way also how the children grow up, might others say. Does that period and being a dad, do you think that also changes a little bit how you are as a manager for young people?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And you have to remember that if you look at statistics, the successful typical founder is someone that is around 43, 42, 43, 44. So we often think about the Mark Zuckerbergs, etc. They're anomalies. Most founders are a bit older. They have families and they have previous work experience, so they know they've seen a problem that they want to fix. So I would say most founders have that positive baggage with them. Yeah, and it helps you see people more holistically. Because I think if you're younger, you only know work, then you see your people in an organization as only one-dimensional. That's what they produce when they're writing code. But when you have your family yourself, it's easier to recognize that this is a full person that has
other layers
that are equally important, both for them, of course, if not more, but also for the company, because different backgrounds gives different views on problems.
So you would say, hand with heart, that this company is a family-friendly company?
Super family. We even have once a year we have family parties with clowns and balloons and treasure hunts around the office. We have very generous policies around taking maternity and paternity leave, also in the US, which is kind of uncommon.
They must be shocked. They only get a couple of days.
Yeah, if that's. Men basically zero, right?
And women 10 days or something.
2 weeks, which is crazy.
I think it's enough. I think,
so definitely changes you as a leader. And I think it changes Alma, my daughter, as well. Hopefully she will. That's what I'm at least trying to say to her. Not that I want her to take any specific route, but I'm trying to teach her that you can actually choose everything. And for instance, when I grew up, there was no other choice than studying in Norway, and perhaps Oslo. I didn't grow up in Oslo. But I want to make sure that she understands it's a huge world out there, and with endless possibilities. And as I told you earlier, I was kind of stuck in this one route, which was an academic route in Oslo.
And that's something you had to do, or thought at an early age?
I thought that I had to. Of course, no one around me really pressured me.
No one told you have to.
No, no. But I think all of us have these invisible walls that guide us, and I want her to just realize at least that they're there and that they can be moved if she wants to.
Well, that's very, very great to hear. So you try to have a focus on that, bringing her tips and advice about the possibilities are many, and there's no direct paths. She doesn't have to play handball or football to be daddy's perfect girl.
No.
She can play badminton or ice skating or whatever that is.
Exactly. Try not to have specific demands outside being nice to yourself and to others. I think that's pretty. You can come a long way with those two very simple rules.
I see.
And especially be nice to yourself, because I see that as a growing problem with her age group and even older teenagers, that they're too hard on themselves.
Exactly. And we've seen that. We're also worried about the trend with young people. In many ways, people have it better, but also in many ways they have it worse than we did.
That's objectively they have it better, but subjectively often worse, and that's very strange. And I think it is. Well, it's not like rocket science. We as a species, we used to be defined by what we do, finding a career, forming a family, and then repeating. But again, the Western world has come to some kind of plateau where that isn't as necessary anymore, at least not to the same extent that it was. And then you're left with then why? Why is this? Why do I live? And you know my answer to that question.
I see. Going back to people and question we're very interested about mental health. This is something we have a huge passion for. So for us, we see mental health problems as the largest health problem which people have. So, and if we would be wearing mental health on the outside, we would be in a pandemic. So so when it comes to groups, that is the health problem which people have the most. What has been your experience or reflection about mental health problems of employers or where you detect like, well, can you share some experience or reflection about that?
I can use COVID again as an example because especially for the younger generation, which typically tend to move to a bigger city to pursue their dreams, but then the compromise is that they live very small. And they have often their social life outside the apartment. They don't have a family, they don't live with friends anymore. And especially in New York, where you have like a tiny apartment. But even so in Oslo. So when suddenly that entire part of your life is taken away from you, you don't meet colleagues anymore outside on Zoom. And you don't have that social arena where you used to dine, date, meet friends. And you're in this small apartment. Feeling alone.
And it's hard to get a physical hug or high five from Kjartan.
It wasn't even allowed, right?
Exactly.
It's prohibited. So that was I would imagine that we're going to see a lot of effects retroactively from COVID on mental health, which we haven't really understood yet. But even so, we started to see that in the company with some people that were asking if we had, because we have health coverage here, insurance and coverage, asking about how our support system is for talking to someone. So we added that to our health coverage so that people can speak to a therapist for free if they want to. And some of our people have used that opportunity. And what we try to do when we kind of communicated that broadly to the company that we have this service now covered. I remember when I wrote that email that I used some paragraph on, to your point, on comparing having any kind of mental problem with breaking your leg, right? And I remember writing, if you broke your leg, you wouldn't kind of hesitate going to a doctor to get it fixed, right? So why should you hesitate if you break something in your mind? And I think that's, I'm not a professional, of course, but I think that's an important part of normalizing. Seeking help is to compare it to a physical injury.
Easier to understand.
It's something that you intuitively, of course, I wouldn't go around with a broken leg. That's stupid. Why would I go around feeling miserable for no reason? I need to get that fixed.
I see. And your point, as we agree, there's a lot of stigma and taboo about mental health problems. Do you think it's changed now?
Yeah. Definitely.
More openness in society and companies.
You can probably speak to this better than me, but even with my generation and with my guy friends, it's not a taboo at all. And I can only imagine for the generation coming after me that this will be very natural. So I definitely see that the trend is going in the right direction. I think one of the things we have to be wary of is this endless, because it's an industry, right? So if you want counseling in hours, you'll get it. And especially in the US, we see a lot of this where it's used as a way to almost keep the instability alive, right? You kind of constantly reinforcing that you have problems. You should probably cancel your appointments the next 3 years. And so I'm a little bit afraid of the pendulum swinging over in the other side of this.
That the help in mental health might have also negative effect.
It can be a kind of self-enforcing state of mind. I am sick. I need help. But again, I'm not a professional, but I would I imagine at least a percentage of mental health problems are very normal, and it's about identifying them and living with them instead of necessarily fixing it.
I would definitely agree with that. That's a possibility, and that can happen. But comparing it also to physical problems, that happens there as well.
Exactly.
Other people might say, well, I can't, I'm obese, I don't want to train, I've tried that before, this is who I am, and that's why I'm having burger now.
Exactly. So that I imagine this goes hand in hand with a
similarity.
With a more professional kind of suite of tools, so that we make sure that we treat the ones that need to be treated and not everyone. Because I think it will be a growing trend that people are looking for meaning outside themselves, and that they think they can find it by endless self-help books, right? As an example. But I don't think that's the solution.
You would give them science fiction.
Read science fiction too, but read some fiction. Read. Like discover what humanity is about and get interested in your surroundings and try to
see it from a bigger
try to be a participant in this meaningless thing we call society.
But there's something I assume you don't think is meaningless, is that I've been sitting here for some time and I want to ask you, why can't I have shoes in the office? So it was very interesting. So what is it with socks and there is a sign here, or like you have to take your shoes off.
It says take off your shoes, you're home now. And as we talked about earlier, we have purposely designed the office to be calming, not be this white walls office, so a safe spot. And in my opinion, there's no better equalizer than taking off your shoes. Like immediately when you take off your shoes, you are at the same level as everyone else in that place. Even if you're coming in as the CEO of Schibsted or a big time investors, once you kick off those fancy shiny shoes and you have to show your socks that very often have holes in them.
Exactly. I guess like I had to take off. It's like I hope I don't have holes.
Very often.
Yes, there's no holes.
It's it's one of those.
I was very relieved.
You have great socks, but it's one of those physical actions that impacts your state of mind. So you can help the brain get into different moods by these small physical.
Very interesting. Was that somehow inspired by Japanese culture in some degree, or? No,
it was again, as with life, a series of accidents. So the first office we had in Oslo was it used to be an apartment. So we decorated as an apartment. We had a kitchen, we had a living room, and then it was natural to think that we don't wear shoes when we are in our living room. So that's how it started, and then we just learned over time that it was a fantastic, equalizer for everyone, and it just took down the seriousness and the anxiety level a couple of notches when you're in your socks.
I see. Very interesting. I have to say, at least I feel more at home. It took half a minute.
Exactly.
But it was a good feeling.
And you get quicker to the real conversations.
I think so. I'm fascinated to hear about how you think about your future. Not in the retirement. We've covered that, but like if you see the couple years ahead. What is important for you the next years ahead?
To write a book.
To write a book. Okay.
That's my next.
That's the baby which you have in.
That's the next baby, and it will be born when the time is right. Luckily, this is a child I can control. When it's being.
So you want to write a book Okay.
Yeah, I have,
Great.
and I can't really explain it why.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always, I do love writing, of course,
Mm-hmm.
that's a prerequisite, but I've always had a desire to see if I can, not always, but for a long time, if I can put enough logical thoughts on a piece of paper to last 300-400 pages and keep people interested. Only if it's just one or two. So it's about it's something I don't know how to do. And as we talked about earlier, that's when I'm happy. So
in the discomfort zone, discovering new sides.
It's new territory for me. I don't really know how to do it. I don't know how much time it will take. I've started.
You started
a bit,
okay.
just to feel it. But I know it will take like a minimum a year of full dedication. So this might be 5 years, 10 years into the future. But I always like to have a certain amount of idea of what's next. And then perhaps it'll happen. Perhaps something else will come in the way. But I do strongly believe that I have one book in me.
Is it the process then you're seeking, and not necessarily the end result?
It's both. If you define the end results as proving to myself that I could do it, yes, that's important. And then I do like the process of diving into new matter. So it's both.
And have you chosen the topic of the book?
Yeah. I have the.
Wow.
I have the story out.
But it's still on.
It's a love story.
It's a love story. Wow. You're a romantic man.
Define romance first.
Oof, that's a tough one. Full of love. Are you full of
love?
Yes.
I'm full of love. Yes. I very seldom entertain negative thoughts. Very, very seldom, both to myself and to others. Can be if someone. The one thing I react very strongly to is cowardness and people not, or betrayal. Like if you say one thing and do something else, not small stuff, but like big stuff, where you hang people out to dry. Not necessarily me, but others. I have a very hard time dealing with betrayal. But other than that, I have no demons or anger in my life that I know of. Perhaps it's hidden away in a ball in my stomach and will erupt in 5 years, and I'll call you.
I hope no one betrays you in a love relationship.
No, that's not betrayal.
No.
Betrayal is like taking decisions for yourself that is good for you. That's not betrayal. I'm talking about deeper. Like going back on very important decisions that have been very firmly cemented. So I have very, very few of those examples. But if I were to mention one thing, that would be something that can make me angry. But
I see. Exciting. I would love to take a look. I hope I can be on the notification list, subscription list.
If I have a black ball in my stomach that I'm not aware of that will erupt, I will call you, or I will use your digital services.
Okay, that's good to hear. Well, it's been wonderful to have you, talking with us. I hope you had the same feeling.
Yeah, super. Talking about yourself is the best thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been very, very nice to have you, and we wish you all the good luck, both with your book and your company and private life.
And the same to you, and Life Kiss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.